Eddie Hearn really dropped a bombshell, and I'm surprised not many people are talking about it, but leave it to your boy Ego to keep talking about it. So Eddie Hearn did an interview with Andre Ward. It was, from what I seen, I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was good stuff. And I think him being brought on to the Devin Haney fight, he dropped a bombshell that not enough people are talking about. So that's what I'm gonna spend some more time talking about. But in this, I've already made videos where I played the clip. You guys can check those videos, subscribe to the channel. Eddie Hearn revealed pertinent information about Haney Garcia in that fight. Keep in mind, he stated that from a perspective of he was brought in to assist to some degree. It wasn't a rematch room production. It was a Golden Boy production, but him being an experienced promoter, he was still employed and brought in by Team Haney in order to, just kind of be a second set of eyes or overseer to help Bill Haney and Team Haney navigate if there were any weird scenarios. Now, I think it's safe to say that it was done horrendously by all parties involved. And again, I don't know how much of that was Eddie Hearn's fault because he wasn't the lead promoter working with Devin Haney, so he didn't maybe have the ultimate say or more power. I don't really know exactly what his role was and how much he was paid. So all these things matter, because if somebody doesn't pay Boxing Ego, then you gonna get what you pay for. If somebody says, hey, can you make a video and I'm gonna give you X, Y, and Z dollars, and it's not that much, then you're not gonna get a long video and a detailed promo paying that. You gonna have to come out the pocket, right? So I don't really know the true involvement, but what he said was that both fighters rolled the dice and took a gamble, and instead of having a guaranteed minimum, so this means a guaranteed minimum would mean, hey, win, lose, or draw, Devin Haney, you're gonna make $8 million. Hey, Ryan Garcia, win, lose, or draw as the A side and having the lion's share of money, you're gonna make at least $10-12 million for this fight, guaranteed. So they didn't have any of these minimums in place, which means they were banking on the pay-per-view sales from the event, thinking they had an event big enough to the point where you basically take a deal like that and take no guarantee up front, no minimum up front, nothing can be promised. That means you're relying heavily or almost solely on the success of the event. You're like bankrolling it. You're taking a chance. It's almost like a rapper who decides, instead of signing to a major record label, to move the units out their trunk and stay independent. So you're taking a gamble because, and I'm talking about the record label, not necessarily now, but back in the day, like in the 90s. Back in the day, the 90s, they had people to help you with the branding, stylists, people to help shoot your music videos. They had like more of a network that for some people that would help, like let's say Beyonce and Destiny's Child, like being signed to a label could possibly help them because they have vocal coaches and different access to things. They could put you on billboards, give you TV spots, things like that. When you sell out of your trunk, the onus is all on you, and you got to just get your group popping. So, at that time, it probably would have been harder. Now, it's easier to blow up as a musician independently, but I'm talking about back in the day, like in the 90s. So, Haney and Garcia took a big gamble. And Eddie Hearn, what he said is they took this gamble thinking that their event would be in the same realm or kind of comparable to Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, which happened the year before Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia fought. Now, here's the thing. Notice the Haneyacks and the Haney channels that never say anything remotely constructive criticism about Devin Haney. Notice they refuse to talk about this. This is interesting stuff from Eddie Hearn, and they still drag their feet, won't make content, won't make videos, won't make posts, whatever type of content creator it is, right? But your boy Ego I don't duck or dodge any subject matter in boxing. This is my sport. So when you come to Boxing Ego, you get the best in the business, and it's not even close. Because people could say, oh, Ego, you're biased, but how could I be biased when I'll talk about everything? That's not being biased. I'm talking about anything, whether it's good towards me or a fighter I like or dislike or whatever, I talk about it. Who's being biased when certain media or certain content creators refuse to even talk about it when it's somebody that you know that they heavily support, right? So I think that is, in and of itself, it kind of exposes what type of time the Haneyacks are on. They won't even talk about this. But nonetheless, more for me. The thing that is definitely concerning is the level of delusion and the lack thereof of like business acumen when it comes to the Haney Garcia fight. What made the Haneys and Ryan Garcia believe that this fight was bigger or the same level as a Gervonta Davis? What is this based on? So either you weren't being realistic and you thought Gervonta Davis wasn't that popping, and maybe you believe the people on Twitter and YouTube comments who say stuff like, oh, those weren't Gervonta Davis fans. Ryan Garcia is the one that really sold the Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia fight. But this is what they do oftentimes to black fighters. You get the race fans and they'll make these statements. They'll say, oh, this event only did good because Conor McGregor. They won't give Floyd Mayweather the credit for it. Oh, this event only sold and did historic numbers because of Manny Pacquiao. They won't give Floyd Mayweather credit for it. But when you look at the top 10 highest earning gates in boxing history, Floyd is in like 4 of the top 5, and he's all through the top 10. So Floyd is the common denominator, but because he is a black athlete and a black pro fighter, they always give credit to the non-black fighter when it's a successful, oh, those are Canelo fans, not Floyd. Oh, those are Oscar De La Hoya fans. But it keeps happening with Floyd. When Canelo fights Avni Yildirim, he's not doing these live gate records. When he's fighting Kovalev, he's not in the top 10 from that particular fight for the highest live gate ever in Vegas, right? So let's keep it real. We know what it is, right? And maybe that's what they bought into as it pertains to Ryan Garcia. Maybe they thought Ryan somehow was bigger. But there were so many miscalculations in this fight. It's going to take me several videos to really break it down. So make sure you guys subscribe. But one of the miscalculations is that they didn't expect Ryan Garcia to act like a freak in the build up to the fight. He didn't even do that for the fight with Gervonta Davis. But for whatever reason, he was acting insane in the build up. And I told you, and the Haneyacks kept saying I was hating and lying, but I told you this was a bad look for Devin Haney. It was a lose-lose fight. Ryan was unselling the fight. And the Haneyacks were saying, no, Ego, you're wrong. This is going to increase the sales. Remember, the Haneyacks were saying that this fight belonged, 2 West Coast guys belong on the East Coast, in the Barclay, in New York, and it's going to sell out. And I'm like, I don't know. I would have put this fight on the West Coast in LA or Vegas. But they were afraid of Canelo, who was fighting weeks later versus Munguia. So they ducked the West Coast and took 2 West Coast. So this whole thing was FUBAR from the beginning. And now Eddie Hearn admitting and revealing that they had no minimums just shows me the lack of experience when it comes to the business. This is why you need a great team. Now, here's the thing with the Haneyacks. The Haneyacks praised Bill Haney. They said Bill Haney is the manager of the year. He's the trainer of the year. Oh, he's getting it done. But life does not work like that. When Bill Haney and Devin are making strong moves, going to Australia, taking a gamble, fighting Kambosos, who people felt was the weakest champ. But when they're making these moves, it still got him in a good position to become undisputed. When they're fighting Lomachenko, when Devin makes the move up to 140 to fight Regis Prograis, people gave credit for Bill Haney and said, oh man, that's an awesome father-son duo, and this is what a father is supposed to be. But then now all of a sudden, when things go completely awry and the decisions made in the Ryan Garcia fight definitely were not good, now the accountability is lacking. So life doesn't work like that. When it's good, you want full credit for what was good. But then when it's bad, it's somebody else's fault. It's never your fault. So the towel should have been thrown in. That's one mistake from Bill Haney. 2, you entered this fight with Ryan Garcia and you expected it to be as big as Gervonta Davis fight, despite there's no data or intel that would indicate that. 3, Ryan Garcia, there was no rematch clause. So win, lose, or draw, you had no options on what Ryan would do next. 4, when Ryan Garcia missed weight by 3.4 pounds or whatever, so he missed by a lot, you didn't put him on contract to have a same-day rehydration so he doesn't come in real blown up the next day, because the Haneys didn't want, because they come in blown up and they rehydrate a lot and they didn't want it on wax and recorded how much they had gained, and they thought they still could beat Ryan Garcia despite him coming in overweight, because they looked at it like most people looked at it as a sign of Ryan not being focused and not being disciplined. So they completely underestimated Ryan Garcia's ability there, and they thought, oh man, he's fat, he's out of shape, he's gonna get tired, he's gonna get winded. And then the night was absolutely disastrous. Now, the additional mistake that was made is what I said throughout this video. You thought this fight, for whatever reason, would be in the same ballpark as Tank, and then the numbers never come out. You pretty much lied to the fans and said you guys made $85 million between the two of you, $50 million for Ryan and $35 million for Devin. And Devin Haney saying, think bigger, BITCH. And then you complained and said Oscar owes you money. But now we find out that Oscar probably doesn't owe you money. Eddie Hearn says he told Devin Haney specifically, yo, this is how much you'll make in the Ryan Garcia fight. And he says he threw Devin under the bus and says, Devin Haney says, no, this is how much I'll make. So an experienced promoter in Eddie Hearn, you're the boss now. You're telling him how much you're going to make, and he deals with numbers and pay-per-views and dealt with DAZN and more fights than you, and a variety of different fights. And then you have Devin Haney, who, according to Eddie Hearn, who was brought in for this fight, is saying, no, this is how much I'll make fighting Ryan Garcia. So you completely miscalculated and overshot it. It's like, let's say a couple is about to get married and they rent out this big, huge, like, church because they think they're going to get 500 people, and they get food catered for 500 people, but then they didn't have people RSVP and only 20 people showed up. So you got 500 people worth of food and cake and dessert and 500 seats, but you only got 25 people that actually showed up. That's a miscalculation. That's what we're having here. So at this point, I don't think Golden Boy has done anything to hold up their money. I think the reality is your money is what you got for the most part. And because Eddie Hearn revealed you didn't have any minimums, you just expected that it would do better. And you're like, hey, I need to see the vitals because it's not adding up to you. But basically the event flopped and you didn't expect it to flop. So now you're probably Aggie and like, hey, hold on, something's not right. It's like a guy working a 9-to-5 job and he looks at his 2-week paycheck and it's only $420. And he's like, wait, hold on, $420, that's not enough. But then when you go to HR and you look at the pay stubs and stuff, you think the number doesn't add up, but then they show you your time card and all the times you punched in, all the times you punched out, and then when you add it up, You called in sick multiple times. You went and left early this day. You went to a doctor appointment this day. You were late this day. So the 420 is not the check that you expected. It's not the check that's going to pay your bills. It's not the check that you wanted, but that's what you earned. And that's life. So if you guys have ever had a job, then you might have experienced that before, where you thought your check was going to be a lot bigger, but then you forgot, oh man, that day I called out, or those 2 days I called in sick, now your check is hit, because that's like 16 hours, or, depending on your job, 16, 20 hours by missing those 2 days. That's not on your check. So that's why you expected your check to be bigger, and then it really wasn't, because you didn't have no sick time, no PTO to recoup those missed days. And you just had to take the hit for the days you weren't there. And that's what it reminds me of with this Devin and Ryan fight. You did this fight with no minimums. You banked on the pay-per-view. You took a gamble and rolled the dice, as Eddie Hearn says. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound like it paid out. And then what makes it worse for this fight particularly is Devin got slaughtered for real by Ryan Garcia, and then Ryan fails a drug test. So now you have both combatants who didn't make the money they expected. It wasn't the event they expected. It wasn't this global Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, big magnitude, colossal fight. And then Devin, his whole aura got stripped away by Ryan's left hook. And then Ryan Garcia's innocence got stripped away because he tested positive for Ostarine. That's a flop. That's an L. That's 2 L's like Cool J. Stop playing with me.